Hi, my name's Meghan. I'm a therapist and coach, and you're listening to Career Congregation Podcast. I created this podcast to inspire people in their careers. After spending hundreds of hours working with clients, one thing I noticed that so many people have in common is just how many people truly don't enjoy their work, or worse, hate what they do every day. I created this podcast to help people start to make changes in their everyday life so they too can find work they love. Every week, I speak with people who've made changes, taken risks, or built careers in ways that feel meaningful to them. These conversations are here to offer real life inspiration, perspective, stories, and practical ideas you can apply in your own life, whatever your industry or whatever career stage you're at. If you enjoy these interviews and are curious about what it's like to work with me one-to-one, you can find details of how to work with me in the show notes. Thank you and enjoy. Hello. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Career Congregation. I have interrupted the regular recording schedule this week to bring you guys a solo episode. I have some things that have come up for me and that have been on my mind, and just things that I like to do with clients that I thought might be beneficial on an episode. So when people start doing personal development work, something that I like to encourage them to do in my coaching practice, and it trickles into therapy as well, so the two are very intertwined, is when people are starting to really do a lot of work on themselves and trying to change their current circumstances so that their life looks different. One of the first things that I like to have them do is, we do the wellness check and sleep, diet, exercise, all of that. But then the next thing, there's a very famous quote that I'm sure many of you have heard, is that we are the product of the 3 to 5 people that we spend the most time with. We are a product of the people who are in our inner circle. So the people who we speak to the most and spend the most time with, we cannot help but by default start to be influenced by their thoughts, behaviors, patterns, conditioning. It's just the reality of things. And what I often see with clients and from my own lived experience is that there might be people in our inner circle who, perhaps well-meaning, that energy is not benefiting us. So I like to have clients do an awareness audit. Nothing needs to be done, just to have an awareness of it and to make, a list, right? So inner circle, medium circle, extended circle, right? Inner circle are the people that that are getting the majority of your energy. They know all your stuff. They know your romantic situation. They know your core wounds. They know your biggest triggers. They know if you hate your boss. They know if all your dirty little secrets, if presuming they're dirty, they don't have to be dirty. They know all your stuff, right? And they're your go-to ride or die. You get arrested, you can call anyone in your inner circle. No questions asked, no judgment. They can call you at 4 a.m, although no one really sleeps with their phone on these days. I certainly don't. But they're your go-to people. And those are the people who you need to know that you can trust blindly. Those are the people who have your back when you're not in the room. People who, if someone is saying something disrespectful about you or making fun of you, if you weren't there, they would step up and have your back. And a lot of us have people in our inner circle who we think might do that or who should do that because it's a sibling or a parent, you know, or a friend we've had forever. But the reality is that maybe their energy and how they show up for us isn't actually very good for us. That can be a painful truth. So that is an awareness piece that a lot of people don't necessarily always want to sit with. But this is where boundary work comes in. And I do a lot of boundary work with clients. I've had to do so much on myself personally. I became aware of it during my initial training. I was just doing my foundation course. This was like, I don't know, 2019. And that was when I first really stepped into doing boundary work. And it was so game changing. So your energy, your time, your space is a privilege. And not everyone deserves access to it 24/7. But a lot of people assume they do because, I don't know, they're your family. That line that, you know, we're blood, that I hear all the time. Friends, family, clients, whatever. You can be related to someone and just because you share blood and, you know, DNA does not mean that they've earned a space in your inner circle. So that's a big awareness piece. So your inner circle people, right, ride or dies, you know, that have your back unconditionally. Middle circle people are people that, you know, they will know what's going on in your life, but they don't necessarily get to be privy to absolutely everything. Maybe you don't contact them, you don't communicate with them as frequently, and you know, they're good friends, people that you can kind of trust, but like you wouldn't take all your stuff to them. And then there's the, you know, the full outer circle people who are like acquaintances, right? Maybe someone that you really enjoy, you know, having a glass of wine with, or going hiking with, or, you know, having a girls' dinner. I'm making this is all very female oriented, but, you know, the equivalent in the male world, right? Like someone that you like, you know, maybe it's like a gym buddy that, and I have gym buddies too, because I am a girl and I love working out. So could just be someone that you work out with once a month, or, you know, someone that you have brunch with every now and then, just like a catch-up person, right? But not necessarily your go-to, like, oh my God, I'm about to lose my job and I won't be able to pay my mortgage next month. Who do I call, right? That's your inner circle person. So there's these different tiers, and societally and culturally comes into play with a lot of people, because there are lots of cultures where it's assumed because your family that you're automatically someone's inner circle. So I've helped a lot of people work through that, and I've had to do that in my own life many times and had to learn the lesson over and over and over and over again. You know, you want your maybe your siblings or your cousins or your parents or your aunts and your uncles to be in your inner circle. We want that. We all want that. Inherently, we do. We want that, right? But energetically, it's not always a good match for those people to be in your inner circle. That's just the way it is. Especially as we step into kind of where we are in the world with therapy and personal development. There's a lot of people who have done a lot of work on themselves, myself included, right? We are switched on. We know what our triggers are. We know what our core wounds are. We know what we need to do to preserve our energy. We know what drains us. And we have a lot of awareness. And we notice in our bodies how we feel after we spend time with certain people. And then there's a lot of people, and many of whom are people we're related to or that we work with, right? So we have to be around them. We don't have a choice. We can't like cut them out of our lives, right? So, and that is generally the case with family and with colleagues. But that's where the energetic boundaries come in, is when you notice someone is draining your energy, or you don't feel good after you talk to someone, or you tell someone a secret and then you find out from another colleague or another family member that this person who you had trusted with trusted personal information is sharing it around. Or people have like misconstrued something you said. Either way, energetically, didn't feel good. You felt disrespected. You felt that your needs were disregarded. And it was an energetic exchange that made you feel shitty, right? When things like that happen, it's information. I always say it's information, right? It's not good, it's not bad, it's just information. But it shows you that whoever has done that doesn't deserve to be in your inner circle. And it doesn't matter if that is your father, your sister, or, you know, your work bestie who sits next to you. If they can't respect you and your secrets or your needs or your desires or whatever, they don't deserve access to your inner circle information, right? Only a very privileged few people deserve that, right? They do say that as you get older, that your circle of friends tends to get smaller. And I think I personally have a lot of friends, and my circle of friends is fairly large, but those inner circle people, it's quite difficult to have more than sort of like 5 or 6 people that you would really you can trust blindly. But I think a good way to think about it is that your inner circle people, someone said this to me when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I was really struggling. It was a family situation, and I was feeling so hurt. And my really good friend Kelly, she won't mind me naming her, she has said, I have some quotes from her, that she's one of my closest friends, and that girl has had my back since we met. She loves me unconditionally. And, you know, we had a difficult period once in our relationship where we had to go, and we agreed we're not inner circle people, and we were kind of extended circle people for a little while, but then we made up, and we both had to prioritize our own needs, and then we came back together, and we just have so much respect for each other, and we care about each other, and that girl has my back. And she has said some of the most profound just quotes that just made me stop. And I was upset about, I can't even remember what the situation was, but I was upset about a family member, won't go into details over who, and she stopped me and she said, your closest people in your life are supposed to be your cheerleaders. If they don't have your back, they don't deserve to be in that space, right? And it was the cheerleader part that really hit me, because I was like, oh my God, this person has never been my cheerleader, right? And then I was reflecting on some of my friendships that I had. And it's harder when you're in middle school and high school ages, sort of 12 to 16, 17. That's when, girls can be cliquey and it can be really gossipy. And I had some really challenging female relationships during those years. And that was actually when most of my good friends in those years, sort of between the ages of 12 up to early 20s, my closest friends were all guys, because girls were mean and girls are jealous and girls are bitchy, and you don't see it at the time, but now that I'm older, I look back and I'm sure a lot of jealousy involved, and competing for probably guys in high school, multiple girls like the same guy type situation, lots of backstabbing, lots of gossip. But it's also, it's like, it's disappointing when you see things like that play out, because it's like, where did we learn these behaviors, right? Like, I don't believe that modeling treating people that way is okay. It's just not. Anyway, going off on a tangent. Your inner circle people should be your biggest cheerleaders. I don't care if it's your mother, if it's your boss, if it's the sweet lady who works in the shop down the street that you see every morning and have a coffee with, whatever. Your inner circle people need to be your biggest cheerleaders, because when you are down, that is what you need. And I have to say, the life of being a solopreneur, entrepreneur, it's one of the biggest personal development growth edge experiences that a person can have. It's not for everyone. It's absolutely not for everyone. And I know that. So you go through your therapy training, you have to learn all of your stuff that way. And then you graduate to the next level if you decide not to work for like a therapy clinic or center and to just be self-employed, which is what I am. And you will learn like all the wounding, all of the shadows and like core wounds and stuff. It all comes up when you're self-employed, right? Safety, security, being able to pay for things, negotiation, your rates, self-worth, people canceling on you, cancellation policies, contracts, everything. It is so intense, so intense. So my inner circle, since I became self-employed, has changed very dramatically. I mean, it started to change a lot when I was doing my therapy training, but it just continues to get more and more refined. And new people come in. But people who were very, 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 very big inner circle people aren't now. They just aren't. I have also moved, so that changes too. But you just develop a more acute sense of awareness of how you feel after you spend time with people. And for me, I know immediately if something feels off in an energetic exchange with another person, that's not they can't be in my inner circle. If they drain me, if I feel at all drained after sharing space with this person, I mean, fair, people go through stuff, right? So if one of my best friends is like going through a breakup and she calls me crying and we spend 2 hours on the phone and I'm holding her through that experience, yeah, of course I'm going to feel like, a little tired after, but that's a natural ebb and flow of a relationship. But if someone is like really kind of like questioning you, not holding you up, not acknowledging when you hold them up, not being your cheerleader, that is information that you should take on board. And it can be uncomfortable and it's difficult, right? But it's a necessary step that we all need to go through. So I had a coach a really long time ago, like 15 years ago maybe, and she is the first person who brought my attention to this kind of like energetic awareness of how I feel after I spend time with certain people. And she was like, you don't need to do anything, but just think about the people in your life who you spend the most time with and how you feel after you spend time with them. And also just notice if anything feels off. And it was the first time I'd ever really done like an audit like that. Like I was like, oh, like a friendship audit. And then she was like, no, it can be family too, but just notice, write it down and maybe say the thing, right? Because sometimes there's things that we don't say, right? So, and it was a little sticky, uncomfortable exercise, but I remember journaling and writing down the things. And like, there was one friend who I just had so much fun with, I absolutely adored, but I was getting to a stage in my life where wellness was really important to me, and I was doing my like yoga teacher training, and this particular friend, when I wrote down their name, was someone who was not into wellness and only wanted to meet, in environments that were very party centric. And don't get me wrong, there's a raging party girl inside of me. She's been napping for quite a while, but she still comes out every now and then. But my life has changed. My priorities have changed. I'm also, in my 40s now, so I don't like staying out till 3 a.m. as much as I used to. It's maybe a couple of times a year now, whereas it used to be all the time. But it was in that time frame, in that time period, when I started to notice, like, hey, I actually don't want to drink this weekend. I want to get up early and go for a run, and then I want to go to yoga. And like, hey, do you want to meet for brunch? And whenever I was suggesting meeting for brunch to this person, they were like, totally shut it down. And it was bothering me, but we'd never talked about it. And that was when I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to put that person's just a party person and not like a wellness person. So first time I ever did like audit of friend groups, it was kind of like rearranging, like, this is a party person, this is a daytime person, like, and we all have friends that meet our different needs in those ways, but it's the how you feel after you spend time with them. And so anyways, I made this list and I put certain people on the list and reasons why. And it was about a year later, the majority of those people that I had named on the list, and I'm not going to say I had falling outs with, but they were no longer my people that I was spending the most time with. So I always say the awareness is the first step. So a lot of people that don't even think about this stuff, like, they don't have the awareness piece yet. But the awareness piece is a really big part. So first, have the awareness, right? This is just a really good exercise to do. If you're feeling depleted, if you're feeling drained, if you're questioning your stuff all the time, take a minute and think about who is influencing your energy and your thoughts, right? Because if you're really excited about something, right, which is what entrepreneurs have to be, we have to be excited about what we're doing or we won't be able to do it, right? If you're really excited about something and you take that information to someone who you trust and they shut it down, that sucks, right? Think of it like it's almost like inner child work, right? Like when your little, 4 or 5-year-old is like, look what I made. If someone is always looking at them and saying, that's not very good. Oh, you shouldn't have made that. I would have done it differently. What is that going to do to that little child, right? That sucks. It hurts. You wouldn't do that to a child. So when I have friends that are like, I want to run a marathon, I want to start my own business, stuff like that, I am their biggest cheerleader. I'm like, absolutely, that's amazing. Make a post, I'll reshare it. Like, that's the energy you need to be matching the people in your inner circle with. And if you can't do that, maybe you need to reassess your inner circle, right? So what I have experienced is that people who are very skeptical, very negative, sort of second guess all my stuff, don't have my back, don't support me. And some people are just more pragmatic, right? Like one of my exes was just a very skeptical kind of guy. And he used to question everything and he was very argumentative, whatever. And I didn't realize until much later after we were no longer seeing each other, how much that used to bring me down. Like, it was just like, he would just like snuff out all my good ideas and things that I was excited about. And this is an energetic that I experience with my family as well. Not everyone in my family, but there are certain people in my family who that is just the way they are. And that doesn't work for me when I have big ideas and I have dreams. And you do have to be a little delusional to succeed as an entrepreneur. So, and I'm aware of that. And I'm aware that that kind of energy doesn't work with older generations who want to embrace, salaries and like getting a mortgage and all of that. But that's not an energy that is something that works for me. That's just not for me. So I can't be around that kind of like negativity, skepticism, and because what that is to me is a constant reminder that they don't believe in me. And that takes a toll after a while. You feel that. My closest friends, all of them, have such like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. They all know, and they always have, from when I started training to be a therapist, from when I was talking about starting a podcast, from when I started a coaching program, all of it. My closest friends are like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm so excited for you. Like, tell me how I can help you. Where can I share it? That is the energy that your inner circle people need to have. And I'm just bringing this to you guys to see, because there are a lot of people who maybe haven't done this kind of like audit consideration with friends and family. The people that you call when you have good news, bad news, big ideas, how do they hold you? How do they support you? Obviously, when we have, when we're fired or dumped or whatever, there's people that you want to call. But when you have like big ideas, something you want to share, a crush on someone, whatever, like that information is not for everyone. So really consider who you share that with. And then the next sort of step of that is, once you have that awareness piece, is a bit of boundary work. And boundary work, like I do a lot of this with clients, and I have to repeatedly do it in your own life. It's not like it gets easier to implement boundaries with people. I'm actually like kind of ruthless about it now at this stage in my life and in my career, because I have to be. I don't have the emotional capacity to like over explain why I've implemented a boundary. I will explain it to you once, and then I will exercise the boundary, and that's all there is to it. So the first level is energetic boundaries, where someone's not treating you right. You realize someone's gossiping about you, someone's twisting your words, someone isn't trustworthy, whatever the reason is. Someone, repeatedly dumps on you when you ask them not to, or, you ask them not to call you at a certain time and they keep calling you at a certain time, whatever. Someone's not respecting you and your space. So you energetically shift, right? So you don't respond to their messages instantly. You don't pick up their calls all the time. You decide, okay, they couldn't keep that secret, or they twisted what I said. So you don't tell them the next time, right? Or you don't give them the full story, because they haven't earned it, right? They've lost that privilege of keeping your information. If they still can't respect it, and what I see a lot is when people implement an energetic boundary, the person who was benefiting from your weak boundary or no boundary at all with them doesn't like when you implement an energetic boundary. So they'll start acting out. And what you'll see is a lot of childlike behavior. They'll start complaining to other people, oh, so-and-so isn't they didn't tell me that, or like, what? I didn't know that. Why didn't they tell me that? And that kind of reaction is quite common. Um, if they continue to disrespect your boundary or your wishes, then the next step is verbal, right? And you have to say, I'm not comfortable sharing personal information with you anymore. Sorry. Or, hey, I think, we were sharing a lot with each other previously. I don't feel comfortable doing that anymore. I hope you can respect that. Or, hey, I'm not available to talk at the times that you've been wanting to talk. So maybe we can find a new time to talk. If not, let's just step back. Whatever the verbal boundary needs to look like, right? It's in relationships, it's a big one. It's really tricky and it's really scary. And I do find women struggle with this more than men because we have been societally trained to be like people pleasers. So it's scary when you first start putting in these boundaries. It's really scary. It's really dysregulating. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, right? It's like exposure therapy, right? You have to build yourself up to it, but you become more and more and more empowered, right? A lot of men have no issues with this, right? Respect to them. A lot of them do. But I think men are better at cutting through the bullshit and just being like, no, that doesn't work for me, right? It's a lot harder for women to do that. And I'm not trying to be sexist, but it's just true. I've seen so much of that with my friends and in client work and in my own experience. It's just, yeah, setting boundaries can be tricky. So anyways, then the third level of boundary setting is if the energetic boundary didn't work and the verbal boundary didn't work, it's still continual disrespect. Then the hardest thing is actually saying, I can no longer have you in my life, right? That's when you end the relationship. That's the breakup stage, right? And that can be really, that's hard. No one ever wants to get to that point. The hope is that most people will respond positively to an energetic boundary. But not everyone does. So just some food for thought, a little bit of boundary stuff. And I think knowing who to turn to, this is a tense time in the world. People are very dysregulated. It's been intense. I've seen a lot of career stuff going on with a lot of people. It's really scary. It's just a difficult time. So you want to make sure that the people who are in your inner circle have your back and you can trust and are your biggest cheerleaders. That's really important, right? I think that's the main message that I wanted to send today. But if you think that this is something that you're struggling with, if it's an awareness piece that you've never really considered, I love doing this work with clients. Sometimes it takes a bit of picking apart and sometimes it's really challenging, right? Like if you realize like, oh God, like I've been like sharing all of this stuff with my mother or, with my sister, and she's actually, I can't trust her. I can't share this information with her. That's hard and it's hurtful. None of us want to feel that way about family members or a dear friend that we've had for years and years and years. But sometimes things need to be switched around a bit, because the most important thing is that you know that you can trust the people that you're turning to. And when you can't trust the people that you need to turn to on a day-to-day basis, that everything is connected and that starts to erode your well-being and everything going on in your life, right? Because everything's connected. So I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle is to have awareness around that. So have a think about your inner circle people, and are they your biggest cheerleaders or not? And if they're not, then it can be really difficult, but maybe you need to name it and do a little bit of journaling with yourself. Name it, try and think, why is this person not my biggest cheerleader? Why is this person upsetting me? What is the energetic disparity from when I spend time with them and how I feel after? And is this fixable? Sometimes a conversation, it can fix it, and that's great. Yeah, this is work that I love doing with clients. So if this is something that you feel that you want to explore, link to work with me is in the show notes and in my bio. I just want everyone to look out for themselves and feel really empowered. And it's hard to feel empowered if you're being constantly chipped away at, or if people kind of shut you down or question everything you're doing. It's a harder energy to recover from, and over time it can really take a toll. So try to consider the people that are getting the privilege of your time and your energy, and make sure that they fill up your cup and lift you up. Protect your energy, right? This is a time where we are being drained. Our batteries are being drained energetically. Everything around us is draining us. We're on our phones all the time. We're on screens all the time. People are bombarding us with messages and text messages and calls and whatever. And if we can't continue to have more bad news and feel worse about ourselves. So our inner circle people need to lift us up right now. And if they're not doing that, there's only so much weight we can carry as well. Like, there might be a couple people in your inner circle who have to remain in your inner circle, or like close to you, because you can't cut them out. Like the person who sits next to you at work that you see every day, or I don't know, you're caring for a relative who's unwell, and you're looking after them every single day, right? If that is a situation that you are navigating, appreciate that that's going to be a big energy drain for you. So the rest of the people in your life need to bring you up, right? We are all teetering around capacity right now. Just being human and navigating the human experience in the world right now is challenging enough. So try to do a check-in and notice if you're in an energy drain, gossip pool, clique, people who you can't rely on, people who don't have your back, people you don't trust. Get rid of that or shift it. Just shift it. Those situations don't get all your energy and attention anymore. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you get some value out of this. And if you have a situation that you want to unpick, I'm here. So link to work with me and chat with me is all in the show notes and in my bio. I look forward to speaking with you all next week. Okay, thanks. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Career Congregation. I hope it gave you something to think about or inspired you in some way. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, or share this episode with someone you think it might resonate with. Every bit of support helps. If you know someone who you think would make a great guest, please send them my way via the link in the show bio. And if you'd like to support the show and the work that I do, you can buy me a coffee via the coffee link also in the show bio. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week for another conversation about all things career.